Have you ever had a moment like this? Sitting in silence, when suddenly your mind is flooded with the image of someone. Every detail of them so vivid, it feels like they are right there beside you. And then, not long after, your phone lights up. A message. From the very person you were just thinking about. You smile, but deep inside there's a strange sense of wonder. How could such a coincidence happen at exactly the right moment? I remember once, a friend of mine told me she was sitting on a bus, watching the fogged-up windows, when she suddenly thought of someone she hadn't seen in a long time. It wasn't a random thought. It was a wave of emotion, like her heart had been squeezed. And right when the bus stopped at the intersection, she looked up and saw him standing across the street. Out of hundreds of faces, only his appeared, as if the universe had carefully crafted a meaningful joke. You might call it coincidence, but to some, it's not just chance. It feels like a secret language only the soul understands. Invisible threads connect two people, stronger than distance, quieter than words. Sometimes that language speaks in the smallest signs. A dream that repeats, a song that plays at the perfect time, a sudden ache in the heart without reason. You sense a gentle shift inside you, and somehow you know that somewhere, that other person might be feeling the same rhythm. Carl Jung once said that these coincidences are not just random events. He called them synchronicity, meaningful alignment. It's when two seemingly unrelated events happen at the same time and create a layer of meaning that the mind can't explain, but the heart understands, and the subconscious recognizes it instantly. Imagine this. You're sitting alone in a dark room, streetlights spilling in through the window. Suddenly, without warning, a memory of someone rushes back. Their smile, their voice, the moments that once made you tremble. It's so vivid you ask yourself, could they be thinking of me in this exact moment? Maybe they're somewhere else, with the same kind of longing, the same strange pull they can't explain, like two candles burning at opposite ends, but their flames surge stronger when touched by the same breeze. We often believe that our experiences are separate, that our feelings belong to us alone. But sometimes, our heartbeats, our thoughts, our secret stirrings, seem to echo in a space much larger, a space we all share, even when we're unaware of it. I've had a moment like that. That night, I couldn't sleep. There was a strange unease inside me. Nothing had happened that day, but my heart was racing, like it was waiting for news. The next morning, I got a call. A close friend had just gone through something life-changing. At the same time I was lying awake, she was crying in a hospital room. No one said anything, but somehow, I had heard her tears in the silence. Do you believe we can pick up on the invisible signals of others? Like two violins placed side by side. When one is played, the other hums softly in response, even though no one touched it. We think we are separate, but deep in the unconscious, those vibrations still find their way to connect. In life, some people pass by and leave only a fading echo, but others leave a mark so deep that even when they're not around, you feel their presence in the most unexpected ways. A fleeting scent, a song playing on the radio, a silhouette at the corner of a street. All of it like puzzle pieces reminding you that there's a red thread tying you to them. And that's what makes the heart both tremble and fear. Tremble because you realize you're not alone in your feelings. Fear because this goes beyond control, beyond explanation, beyond prediction. Maybe you felt it too. Missing someone so much your heart aches, and at that exact moment, they call, as if answering your silent longing. Or you dream of a conversation with them, and the next morning they send a message that says the exact same words. These moments need no explanation, because your soul already knows the answer. The language of the unconscious is not made of words or letters. It speaks through symbols, through emotion, through perfectly timed events that make you pause and ask, is something greater at play? And in those moments, you realize that sometimes your thoughts and theirs meet at the same point, like two roads that seemed apart, suddenly crossing in a strange intersection. That's not imagination. It's resonance, a soul-level vibration that only those who have felt it can truly understand. It lingers, making it hard to deny. Maybe right now, as you're hearing these words, someone just came to your mind, and your heart started to beat faster. Don't dismiss it as mere coincidence, because perhaps somewhere, that person is also remembering you at this very moment. These moments are like flickering flames in the dark. You can't hold them. You can't keep them. but their light is enough to remind you that you're not alone. A silent, steady connection that reaches across all distance. And in the instant you feel that resonance, a quiet question begins to echo inside you. Could this feeling truly be mine, or is it a whisper from another soul? And as that question continues to stir in your heart, your body begins to respond with subtle, powerful signals, as if someone far away just touched the invisible thread inside you. There are days when you wake up feeling strangely unfamiliar. Nothing dramatic has happened, and there's no clear reason, yet your heart feels heavy, weighed down by something you can't quite name. Or the opposite happens. You're tired, drained, and suddenly, a burst of joy rushes in like a breeze, slipping through the window. These shifts come so unexpectedly, you can't help but wonder, are these really my emotions? Or has a wave from somewhere far away just touched me? Human emotions are delicate and complex. They don't always come from what you directly experience. Sometimes they ripple in from someone else, traveling across invisible space and quietly touching your heart. People often think emotions are private, sealed within. But in truth, they're more like the atmosphere. We breathe them in, share them, and influence each other without even realizing it. I remember a girl once confided in me. She said she suddenly felt overwhelmed with sadness, as if she were carrying someone else's sorrow. That night, someone she once loved sent her a message. He was going through a difficult time and didn't know who to turn to. The moment he opened up, she realized something. When he was falling apart in silence, her heart had already started beating in rhythm with his. No need to see him, no need to hear a word. Yet the invisible connection had already spoken. Carl Jung once compared the unconscious to a vast ocean. We think of ourselves as separate islands, but beneath the surface, we're all connected by the same land. When someone drops a stone into the water, the ripples travel far, reaching the shores of others. That's why sometimes your heart trembles, and you don't even know why. Imagine sitting in a quiet room. There's no sound, no sudden news, but in your chest, your heart beats faster. Your breath shortens. The feeling doesn't match the moment. That's when you're hearing someone else's rhythm, even though they're not in front of you. Like two stringed instruments placed near each other. When one is played, the other softly hums in return. What's fascinating is that these emotions aren't always joy or love. They can be fear, longing, or even inner conflict. You might be walking down the street and suddenly feel a wave of nostalgia rise for no reason. Or while working, a sense of unease creeps in, like someone is silently calling your name. These feelings, if you pay attention, could be echoes from a familiar soul. The problem is, we often dismiss them too quickly. We think we're just tired, just stressed, just overly sensitive. But if you pause and listen, you'll realize emotions never come without a reason. They might be yours, or they might be signals from a connection you haven't yet acknowledged. Once, I met a man in his 40s. He shared that for years, late at night, he would feel uneasy without knowing why. Only later did he learn that during those very nights, the woman he once loved had been quietly facing deep pain, alone. He couldn't be there with her, but his body reacted as if it could still hear her heartbeat. He said, "I realize that sometimes love doesn't disappear. It just finds another way to exist in feelings, in invisible unease. Sometimes these shifts grow stronger. You might feel compelled to do something, send a message, make a call with no clear reason. And when you do, the other person says, 'I was just thinking about you.' In that moment, you understand that resonance is real. It doesn't need scientific proof because your soul already knows. If you've ever experienced it, you'll understand. It's not just coincidence. It's a silent melody between two souls, playing even when they're in different places. People often call this harmony. But true harmony isn't just about shared interests or memories. It comes from somewhere deeper, the unconscious. In that space, our most profound emotions, whether joy or pain, don't disappear. They settle, wait, and then rise again in special moments, sending signals to one another. Have you ever wondered, could some of the emotions inside you not fully belong to you? They're like unopened letters sent from another heart. All you need is the sensitivity to notice. And this, too, brings a challenge. Because not every signal you receive is sweet. Sometimes it's a tug of war, an anxiety, a doubt. But even those feelings are proof that between you and that other person, the thread of connection is still vibrating. I often picture this. Two candles at opposite ends of a room. When one flickers in the wind, the light shifts and the other responds. gently swaying too. You can't see the breeze, but you know it exists because both flames dance. That's how emotions move silently, but powerfully. The important thing is, when these shifts arise, pause and ask yourself, are these truly my feelings? Or am I hearing the heartbeat of another? This question isn't about finding a perfect answer. It's about opening the door to deeper understanding. Because sometimes, just knowing that your feelings aren't alone is a kind of healing. Maybe right now, you're sitting somewhere, and a memory of someone rises in your mind. Maybe they're walking through a crowded street, and in that same instant, they're thinking of you too. We may never know, for sure. But it's that very uncertainty that makes it sacred. It reminds us that what we feel isn't just the work of the brain, but an echo from some deeper place within the soul. And then, as you begin to notice, you'll see that these unexplainable emotions often come with outer signs, strange coincidences, symbols appearing right when you think of them, as if the world around you becomes a mirror for the connection within. And just when your inner world starts to tremble, the signs outside begin to appear, those strange coincidences that make you stop, fall silent, and ask yourself, could this still be just chance? Have you ever found yourself in a moment like this? You're walking down the street, and suddenly your mind is filled with thoughts of someone. Then, right at that moment, you hear their name spoken by two strangers passing by. Or you're thinking of them, and a song tied to your shared memories starts playing in a cafe nearby. You freeze, unable to believe the coincidence, but your heart trembles, as if someone from somewhere far away has just softly called your name. People often say it's just a coincidence, but is it really? If you pay close attention, these coincidences tend to appear at very specific moments right when you think of them, or right when you're trying to forget. It feels like a secret language of the universe, written in signs rather than words. I once heard a story about a young man. He had been trying to let go of a past love, convincing himself it was time to move on. But that very day, while organizing his books, he accidentally pulled out an old novel. Tucked between its pages was a movie ticket they had shared years ago, a small slip of paper, forgotten and random. Yet it felt like hearing someone's silent sigh echo from the past. Carl Jung once said that the unconscious doesn't speak to us in words. It speaks through symbols. It leaves signs for us to recognize what the rational mind refuses to accept. These so-called coincidences are not random at all. They're the unconscious reminding you that the connection is still alive, still breathing, still touching you, even if you try to ignore it. Once, I was on a long train ride. I kept thinking about an old friend I hadn't seen in years. Her name echoed in my mind, and when I looked up, right there in the next car was an advertisement poster with her name printed in large bold letters. I couldn't help but smile, half in surprise, half in bittersweet recognition. I knew then it wasn't just another ad. It was a signal that the thread between us hadn't vanished. Maybe you've experienced signs like these. A repeating number, like 11 to 11 showing up every time you think of them. A line in a movie that matches exactly what they once whispered to you. Or a friend casually mentioning their name on the very day you tried to bury the memory. These moments send shivers down your spine because they come with such perfect timing. As if someone out there is playing a game of sending signals across distance. And you know what? That feeling is both unsettling and comforting. Unsettling, because it shows you're not in full control of what stirs in the depths of your unconscious. Comforting, because it tells you that the connection is still there, even in silence. Sometimes, these signs are not meant to remind you of them, but to remind you to listen, to ask yourself what inside you is still unhealed, still holding on. Because the universe, or perhaps more accurately your soul, never sends a signal without purpose. It only speaks when something needs to be seen. If you've ever experienced this, then you know the feeling, that trembling confusion. It's like standing in the dark and suddenly seeing a light flicker in the distance. You don't know who lit it, but you know that light is for you. And if you're listening to these words right now, maybe a part of you has felt it too. If that's true, I invite you to share your story in the comments, those moments when it felt like the universe was sending you a message. Because maybe your story will comfort someone else, someone on the other side of this screen, reminding them they are not alone. And if you feel a sense of resonance, leave a small sign, a like, a subscribe. That too is a signal you're sending to the world, that you are here, that you are listening, that you are feeling. I believe there's a special kind of resonance. When someone thinks of you strongly enough, the world around you reflects it in symbols, in events that feel like coincidence but are full of meaning. Like two underground rivers, traveling from distant places, finding their way to meet in a shared pool of water. And sometimes the signs don't stop with the daylight. When night falls and reason slips into sleep, the unconscious finds a new way to speak through dreams. Because when your eyes are closed, the signals of waking life transform into images, into stories that unfold in your sleep, where two souls can meet without saying a single word. Night is a special time. When the city quiets down, when all conversations fade and only the steady breath of darkness remains, that is when the unconscious begins to speak. It whispers in dreams, where reason holds no control, where everything hidden in daylight reveals itself through vivid symbols. Have you ever dreamed of someone at the very moment you thought you had forgotten them? The dream arrives unannounced. You see them in a strange room, or walk beside them on a street you've never known. But the feeling is hauntingly familiar. You wake up with your heart pounding, your hands trembling, and all day their image lingers like a shadow that won't leave. Some say dreams are nothing more than the brain's chaos. But when you dream of the same person, with the same emotions, again and again, and always during significant moments in your life, can it really be just chance? Carl Jung once said that dreams are the doorway to the unconscious, where the soul tries to balance what it cannot face. And when a dream calls someone's name, it may be a sign that the connection still echoes deep within. I remember a woman once shared that every time she tried to move on, to erase the memories of an old love, she would dream of him again, not in familiar settings, but in strange symbolic places, sometimes at a party, sometimes on a train, sometimes just the two of them standing silently in the rain. The dream gave no answers, but always left behind a lingering ache, as if part of her soul was still searching for release. What's fascinating is that many people have experienced something called a mirror dream. You dream of someone, only to find out later they dreamed of you on the same night. The dreams might differ in detail, but they share the same emotion, the same atmosphere, the same unexplainable presence. When two unconscious minds touch, the dream becomes a bridge between what reality cannot reach. One man said he often dreamed of the woman he loved, standing by a window, her gaze distant. Years later, when they reconnected, she hesitated, then said, "I used to dream of myself by a window, waiting for someone, but I never thought it was you." In that moment, they both fell silent. The dream had spoken the truth, neither dared say aloud. In dreams, the details may not matter. What matters is the feeling. If you feel loved, comforted, connected, then perhaps that is what your soul longs for. Or perhaps it is a wave from the other person reaching out to you. On the other hand, if you feel chased, anxious, or distant, it may reflect unresolved feelings between the two of you. Jung believed that within every man exists the image of an ideal woman, the anima, and within every woman the image of an ideal man, the animus. When someone in real life matches that image, they appear in our dreams as powerful symbols. If you appear in someone's dream, you might be reflecting a missing piece of their soul, something they must face to grow. But sometimes dreams are not there to soothe. They are there to remind you. Maybe you've been suppressing pain or longing, and in the dream it returns, so you have to face it. Or maybe the other person has been holding back their emotions, and in their dream, their unconscious calls your name, sending a signal they can't express during the day. The strange thing is, dreams often come just when we need them most. Just when you think you've finally let go, a dream returns and pulls you back into the depths of memory. Just when you wonder if they still remember you, the dream brings you to a place where you meet again, as if your soul doesn't want the story to end too soon. Have you ever woken from a dream like that, feeling there's something left unsaid, something unfinished? That feeling lingers, stubborn and quiet, like a thin thread pulled tight, reminding you that the connection is still alive. And sometimes, that dream is not yours alone. The other person dreams too. They feel it, they carry the same echo, but for some reason they don't speak of it. You only sense it in the strange emptiness you wake up with, in the hazy reflection of your own eyes in the morning mirror. Dreams are like that half real, half illusion, comforting, yet haunting. They offer no proof, only feeling. And sometimes, feeling is the truest thing we have. Maybe tonight, as you close your eyes, you'll meet someone in your dream. Maybe they'll say nothing. Maybe they'll smile. Maybe they'll simply walk by. But their presence is a message. No words needed, no evidence required. Just one glance is enough for the unconscious to speak. And when the dream dissolves in the morning light, you may doubt, you may dismiss it, but your heart will remember. It will remember that in the darkness of sleep, your soul reached out and touched another. And as the dream fades, your body begins to whisper its own quiet messages through the rhythm of your heart, through the flow of your breath, through strange little responses you cannot hide. There are things the heart knows long before the mind can understand. Your body becomes a compass, trembling with signals you can't quite explain. You're going about your day as usual, and suddenly your chest tightens, your breath shortens. There's no medical reason, just the invisible presence of something that makes you pause without knowing why. Someone once shared that every time he thought about a woman in silence, just minutes later, she would message him. He never said a word, and she had no idea why, but somehow, her body was pulled toward him by an invisible force. Have you ever felt something like that? A sudden urge to pick up your phone and type a message you don't even fully understand. And then, after you send it, they reply, "That's strange. I was just thinking of you." That's not your imagination. That is resonance. Like two instruments tuned to the same frequency, when one begins to play, the other cannot help but respond. The human body holds more memories than we realize. Every touch, every embrace, every glance that once made you tremble leaves a mark. And when someone thinks of you with enough intensity, your body may reflect it like a mirror. You shiver without knowing why, feel goosebumps, or a wave of electricity down your spine. That is your unconscious speaking through your body, a primal instinct reminding you that the connection still exists. Carl Jung once spoke of energetic resonance within the unconscious, where two people can sense each other without physical contact. He wasn't referring to magic or telepathy. He simply suggested that, at the deepest level, our souls can hear each other in a language beyond words, and the body is the first translator of that language. You feel it most clearly in unexpected moments. You're washing dishes in the kitchen, and your heart suddenly races like someone just called your name. Or you're sitting in a crowd, and an image flashes through your mind, their face, so vivid you turn around, almost sure they're standing behind you. The body reacts before the mind can explain. There are nights when you lie in bed, surrounded by silence, and yet you feel a quiet presence in the room. Not fear, but a sense of closeness, like the memory of someone is still wrapped around you, holding you without a sound. You don't see them, but you feel them, and that feeling is strong enough to bring you to tears. One woman once said she would often tremble when the man she once loved thought of her. He never admitted it at the time, but whenever they reconnected, he would confess, "I thought about you so much during that time." Her body had already told her the truth, even when no words were spoken. This can be confusing, because the body doesn't always bring sweetness. Sometimes it carries weight, a sudden anxiety, a restless feeling with no clear reason. And then, not long after, you find out they were going through something painful. The thread that connects you does not choose emotions. It only transmits energy, and your body, like a sensitive antenna, receives it. The question is, are you willing to listen? Are you willing to sit quietly, close your eyes, place your hand on your chest, and ask, is this feeling really mine, or is it an echo from another soul? Only in stillness can you tell what belongs to you and what is flowing in from them. In modern life, we are trained to explain everything with science, with data, with logic. But the body still keeps its ancient instincts. It vibrates with invisible connections. And sometimes, trusting your body is the truest way to trust yourself. I remember one afternoon, I was sitting quietly in a cafe when my heart started beating so fast, I couldn't focus. Moments later, my phone rang. It was an old friend. She was crying. "I just thought of you," she said. "And I don't know why, but I had to call." I sat there in silence. In that moment, I understood that these changes in the body are never meaningless. They are reminders that even in a vast world, we can still hear each other in silence. The body does not lie. It can tremble, tighten, cry, or erupt in joy. Every response is a message. And when that message aligns with someone's sudden appearance in your life, That's when you know there is a connection that goes beyond logic. Imagine two candles placed far apart in the dark. When one flickers, its light shifts, and the other flickers too. Distance no longer matters. What matters is that they share the same wind. You and the other person are like that, breathing the same current, touching in the unseen. Maybe right now, your body is trembling as you hear these words. If it is, don't ignore it. Maybe it's not just your own reaction, but a signal from another heart, thinking of you from somewhere far away. But sometimes, this connection doesn't speak through clear vibrations. Sometimes, it hides in the silence. A silence so heavy, it feels like something wants to be said, but cannot find the words. Some conversations don't end with a goodbye, but with silence. No more messages, no more calls, no clear sign of closure. And yet, deep down, you still know that some part of that connection hasn't completely faded. Silence is often seen as emptiness, but there is a kind of silence so heavy, so dense, that you feel it in every breath. You open your phone, see no notifications, yet your hand hesitates, as if waiting for an invisible signal. In the room, no one speaks, but you sense a vague presence, as if someone is still there, sitting quietly beside you. A girl once told me, after a breakup, she tried to block every contact, erase every memory, cut every bridge. But each night, as she lay in bed, a strange feeling returned. Not longing exactly, but a silent pressure, like a question drifting through the air. Are you thinking of me too? She never got an answer, but that silence echoed louder than any spoken word. Carl Jung once said that the unconscious can communicate through paths the mind cannot explain. Sometimes silence is a language. It's not empty, but filled with everything left unsaid. When a bond hasn't been fully closed, silence becomes a sealed box, holding inside every memory, every unspoken word, every embrace never given. Have you ever felt that way? You open an old message thread, type something, then delete it. You walk to the door, almost expecting someone to knock, but no one comes. And so you tell yourself, maybe it's all in my head. But deep inside you know this silence isn't empty. It's heavy, because somewhere out there, another soul is holding back the same words. It feels like sitting in a room where the piano has stopped playing, but the notes still linger in the air. The musician is gone, but the echoes remain, making it impossible to call the space truly silent. Absence doesn't always mean an ending. Sometimes, absence is the clearest form of presence. And then there are moments when your intuition speaks, a soft sense that they might return. You don't know why. There's no sign, no reason, but your body and heart whisper, they haven't really left. You wait, unsure, but that belief takes root like a red thread, and one day they do return. A message, a call, a glance from across the street. You're surprised, yet something in you knows it wasn't just coincidence. A man once told me that even after years of distance, he always had a vague feeling she would come back. He called himself foolish for thinking it, tried to push it away. But one afternoon, sitting in a familiar cafe, she walked in. They looked at each other, and in that moment, everything was silent. Not the silence of strangers, but the silence of hearts that had spoken long ago. You see, intuition isn't fantasy. Sometimes, the unconscious picks up on signals that the conscious mind misses, a subtle shift in energy, a quiet decision the other person made, a tension still unresolved. You don't know it with logic, but you feel it with something deeper. Sometimes, the person never returns, but you still feel their presence in the silence. Because love doesn't disappear, it changes form. It lives in waiting, in dreams, in the heavy breath of long nights. And silence becomes the proof that the connection never truly ended. Silence can be the weakest confession, but also the strongest presence. It says, I'm thinking of you, but I don't know what to do. It says, I'm still here, but I'm not brave enough to come closer. And sometimes just knowing that is enough. In those moments, you realize that love doesn't always need to be spoken aloud. It lives in your body's quiet tremors, in intuition, in coincidences, and in silence. You can't hold it, you can't see it, but you know it's real, because you've felt it in every cell of your being. Maybe right now, as you listen to these words, a silence inside you is echoing too. Someone you've tried to forget still fills that space within you. If so, trust your feeling. Silence may hurt, but it is also how the soul sends a message. And sometimes, within that silence, You find the final trace of a connection, the presence that can calm you or shake you, but never leaves you untouched. Some people pass through your life and disappear as if they were never there. But others, even after they've gone, leave behind a mark that cannot be erased. That mark doesn't live in objects or memories you can hold. It lives inside you in your breath, in the way your heart reacts at just the thought of them. Have you ever felt it? Just remembering someone changes your entire inner world. Sometimes their image brings a quiet peace, like coming home after a long journey. Other times, a single memory is enough to shake you, like standing in the middle of a storm. Their presence is so powerful, you can't ignore it. It feels like an invisible current running through you, making you realize they never truly left your soul. One man once confessed that even after years without seeing her, every time he thought of her, he felt a strange sense of calm. He couldn't remember their last conversation clearly, but her eyes had stayed with him. He said, "When I'm most exhausted, just thinking of her gaze calms me, like she's still present in my life." There was no contact, no words, just a memory strong enough to make him feel protected. But presence isn't always gentle. Sometimes it's a quiet ache, an undercurrent that won't let you rest. You try to forget, but a single sign, a song, a familiar street, a passing scent brings everything back with overwhelming force. Your body doesn't lie. Your heart races. Your palms sweat. Your whole being feels like it's reliving a story from the past. That presence may hurt you, but it's proof that the connection still holds power. Carl Jung once said that what we consciously reject will return in other ways. You can bury the memory, force yourself to believe it's over, but the unconscious doesn't let go so easily. It reminds you through dreams, through sensations in your body, through strange coincidences, and in the end, through a presence you can't deny. Maybe, as you listen to these words, a face appears in your mind. You didn't mean to think of them, but your heart just skipped a beat. That is the mark. A part of them still lives in you, and maybe a part of you still lives in them. This isn't scientific proof. There's no data to measure it, but you know it's real, because you feel it in every cell, and feeling rarely lies. Here's a truth that sometimes hurts. The connection may never bring you back together. It may live only as a memory, a trace, an echo, but even so, it's worth honoring, because it proves that you once loved, once felt deeply, once lived fully in a moment that can never be repeated. Love doesn't exist only in words or actions. It also lives in the invisible resonance, in the way one soul calls to another without speaking. And sometimes, that is the deepest love, the love that exists even in silence. If you carry such a presence in your heart, remember this: it doesn't make you weak. On the contrary, it means you are sensitive enough to hear the quiet language of the heart. You can choose to keep it as a memory or use it as a force to grow. Either way, that presence has changed you, leaving a mark that time cannot erase. And sometimes, that is the greatest meaning, not to hold on to each other, but to awaken something in each other. To remind you that love is not about possession, but about touching a soul just once and leaving an echo that never fades. Take a deep breath. Think of them. Notice how your body reacts. If your heart goes still, if your eyes fill with tears, if a wave of longing rises, let it. Don't fight it. Because, as Jung once said, what you resist controls you. What you accept transforms you. That is how you set yourself free. Accept that some people will live in you forever, as part of your journey, as a note in the long symphony of life. And when you accept that, their presence no longer weighs you down. It becomes light, a reminder that you once loved and that love is forever a part of you. A quiet echo, like the lingering sound after a song ends. The story may have closed, but something remains in your chest, a feeling that somewhere, someone is thinking of you in this very moment. Thank you for staying with me until the very end of this story. If this message touched your heart, please give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you'll never miss the next journey we take together. Your support means the world to me.